Welcome back to Next Life Garage. We're out here in the Alfresca garage today. Going to be working on the Yanmar finally. We're going to put the final drive assemblies back on the front axle. Going to be a bit of a challenge. The final drive assemblies probably weigh 40 or 50 pounds, and it's just me here working on it. I'm going to use a transmission jack manual style to try and help lift them back up to the axle and get them situated. I don't want to crush the seals in those axles, at least in the hub assemblies. Trying to put them back on, have to do this again. But I'll be working with the birds and the bees. At least the weather's going to cooperate for us today, it looks like. A little overcast, but it's only supposed to be 78 degrees, so that's a plus for me. But I'll get y'all out of the sky in just a minute, show you where they go on the axle, how they go on the axle, and then y'all know what I'm going to do. I'm going to get to it. Alright, I'm sure you guys remember the hub assemblies themselves. Got the left one sitting there, got the right one sitting there. They're kind of bass-backwards for how they're supposed to be set up on the tractor, but just for demonstration purposes, showing you what's going on. This is the right side knuckle. It sits up on top of the assembly like this once we get on the tractor, and basically that sandwiches around the spindle to hold the hub in place. Also gives it a pivot point for the hub to steer on, and that's the right side. And this is the left side over here. This is the arm and cap for the spindle, and this is the part that attaches to the hydraulic cylinder on the tractor to make things turn. We'll walk over to the axle and show you what's going on there. A little transmission jack sitting there we're going to use to try and jack things up smoothly. But this end of the spindle slides into the hub assembly where that bevel gear lies, and then there's an actual spindle shaft that goes down in the top here, and then the cap goes on, kingpin sticking up. Steering arms go on top of that kingpin to allow things to pivot as you're steering the tractor. And that's the steering hydraulic cylinder right there that attaches to the inner edge of that left hand steering knuckle. So I'm going to get to work on this thing. I am going to replace the needle bearing down in the bottom of the spindles. There's a little snap ring that holds those in. We're going to change them out while we're in here. May as well. Probably hasn't been done in 3 years. It's about how old this tractor is, estimate. It's a gray market tractor, never really intended to come to the US, but after it was done overseas, it got refurbished, repainted, new stuff put on, and sent over here. So it's actually got a 4-speed PTO on. I'm gonna get at it and bring you back in once you get a few things done. Well, that's one side done. I'll bring you guys in a little closer so y'all can see what's going on over there. About the little steering arm on top, or knuckle, what I'm talking about, and how it's clamped onto the spindle itself. We'll spin y'all around and let you take a look at that though. See what's going on over there. This is the navigator side. You can see this little steering knuckle here attaches on top of the kingpin over there and attaches to the top of the hub assembly, and it kind of sandwiches the whole thing into that lower bevel housing, and the top steering knuckle kind of sandwiches it on that spindle there to hold things in place. Still allows it to turn though, as you can see there. But that's the navigator side done. I'm going to get to work on the driver's side over there, see if we can't get that finished up. And got the new bearings installed. You can see the upper bevel gear coming out of the drive shaft, and the needle bearings down there in the bottom. Got it pressed in, so we're going to have all new bearings in the spindle shafts here, and hopefully we'll get this stuff wrapped up pretty quickly and get her on the market and get her on down the road to the next farmer that wants to put her out in the field. Well, I've got my mess cleaned up from working on the Yanmar today. Looks like it's going to be mission failed on getting the front axles completely reassembled today. On the driver's side over there, apparently the specs are off on the replacement steering arm versus what the gray market tractor called for. Again, never meant to be here in the US. The reason I don't know how old it is the serial number or VIN number, whatever you want to call it, on it just gives a range from 78 to 81, so it's somewhere within that range of age. But I'll set y'all guys up in front of the axle, let you see what's going on. Right. What's going on the driver's side steering assembly and hub is, I guess the measurement on the replacement steering arm here is a little bit off from what the gray market tractors required. We've got a little bit of a gap here between the hub assembly and the steering arm so that it will turn. But as I tried to tighten these bolts down and bring the steering arm down flush against the hub, it was creating an angle right here on the spindle. And there is a shaft inside this that connects the bevel gear that we saw in here to the bevel gear down in the bottom of this assembly, and binding that shaft up in there so that the axle wouldn't turn, or the steering knuckle wouldn't turn. There's also a steering stop in here that you can't see probably, but it hits against this to keep the wheel from turning too far. There's also a stop on the back, which is what it's resting on right now. And you can see it in the video, the little scrape marks here on the spindle housing. When I tightened this all the way down, it was pulling that steering stop on the top of the hub into the spindle and causing it to bind up and making it really hard to steer. Good news is though, Hoy Tractor sells that shim kit, so I'm going to get a kit ordered so that we can get this addressed and get all of this taken care of. Well, that's where we stand on the Yanmar today. It's been a long day. Probably going to sit down with a couple fingers of my favorite distilled spirit, relax a little bit this evening, after I get cleaned up, of course. I'll put a link to Hoy Tractor in the description so you guys can check out the website. Any of y'all working on Yanmars out there, they've been a lifesaver since I've owned this tractor. About anything under the sun that you need for them, they carry. Give us a thumbs up, that way we know you like what we're doing. Hit the subscribe button and click that bell. It does something. I think it reminds you when I post a video or something. Thank y'all for watching. We appreciate y'all tuning in, and until next time, don't take no wooden nickels and be good. Somebody's got to.